A fast 135mm prime lens was one of those very few lenses I was almost going to return after a couple of weeks of using it. I couldn't find the justification in keeping such an unpractical and limiting focal length that it is often quite pricey. I kept pushing myself in grabbing this lens as much as I could, and time by time I started to understand this focal length a bit better. And I would say that it took me almost 1 year to fall in love with this focal length. So talking about the pro about this prime lens, it has a good enough reach as a short telephoto lens, also for landscape photography. During my past vacation in Sicily, I brought the 135mm f2 and the 50mm f1.4 and a 35mm f1.8 from Panasonic. The lens that I used the most, that is probably 90% of the time, was the Zeiss Sonnar 135mm. So as you can imagine, I had a lot of fun with this 135mm prime lens, and I left totally in the bag the 50 and the 35mm prime lens. Now the second advantage of this lens is that they are generally pretty compact and lightweight if you compare to the big 70-200 f2.8 zoom lenses. This lens has a very unique look thanks to the high compression of the space in the picture and the fast aperture. So you cannot really get this type of compression and look with the 70-200 f2.8 like you will do with the 135mm f2. You can get the same amount of bokeh with the 70-200 at 200mm f2.8, but it's gonna be tighter picture and it's not gonna be as wide with a lot of depth like you would with the 135mm f2. And that's a big plus because it has a very unique look. And yes, this type of lenses are very outstanding. I actually have the problem that I cannot find a good match to this 135mm f2. Even the Zeiss 25mm f2 that I'm using right now has a slight amount of chromatic aberrations and is not 100% perfectly matching with this lens because of this characteristic, but in my case I will say that this lens in particular is like the lab lens, the benchmark, the lens that if I need absolute perfection in an image, for example for product photography, this is the lens I'm gonna pick because it is very outstanding. As we know, nothing is perfect in photography. First of all, it takes age to get used to this focal length, also considering that you're dealing with a prime lens, so you cannot really change much about it. It's an extreme focal length, and in some occasions it can be difficult to know how to snap that picture, considering the limited space that you might have between you and your subject. The second negative aspect of this type of lenses is that they are a bit chunky and a little bit big compared to other prime lenses. For example, if you compare the 135mm next to the 50mm f2 macro, you can see that there is a huge difference in terms of size, but also weight. The 135 is actually double the size and weight of this 50mm prime lens. But it is also much bigger and heavier than the 85mm f1.4 prime lens. So yeah, if you go around with this lens, sort of a commitment. And there is actually another downside that is kind of important if you want to stick with this prime lens, because it's sort of difficult to think about of going out just with this prime lens, because in reality you will always want to bring with you something wider for the just in case I want something wider, you know. So I found in my case that a good match to the 135mm is the 35mm lens. It's not the 24, because the 24 starts to be another extreme and that's gonna be too much, you know. So you want something a little bit closer to the normal field of view, but a bit wider, so you can snap some nice portraits or landscape photos, you know. 35 is very versatile, you can actually use it for everything, but that's a lens you're gonna bring with you for the just in case, because for my experience at least, I bring it with me, but actually I never use it. I might use it for maybe 1 or 2 pictures in a couple of days in a row, but yeah, 99% of the time I stick with the 135. So if you get over this mindset of, oh, I need the 35 because I could need it, then you're gonna be good, because actually you can do everything with the 135. If you're like me and you love to shoot with primes and you already own a 35 or a 50mm prime lens, just add a 135mm prime lens in your kit. You're going to be extremely satisfied, and the images you're gonna capture are going to be very outstanding. But this is it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any question, feel free to ask in the comment area below, that is under the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao!